Hi everybody, it's Oksana. Today I'm going to show you how to make a pendant that looks like this. This is a little bit more difficult than the beginner pendant that I just posted about a week ago. So if you liked that one and you feel like you mastered the beginner one, this is probably the next step. It's a little bit more difficult. We're using 3 wires instead of 2. We got this added element here. This little loop is new. So this is just a nice little, I guess, twist on a basic pendant, and it's got this cute little teardrop, which I really like. And it was inspired by this one that I'm holding here. This is actually an old one from about a year ago when I was just starting out with wire wrapping, and I tried to make something really similar here today for you guys. In this one, this white one, the thinner wire that I'm using to wrap around is actually 26 gauge, which is too thick. I would not recommend it. Today we're going to use 28 gauge, but I was just starting out. I didn't really know, and it seemed like it was going to be thin enough, and I did have a very difficult time, keeping my wraps nice and tight and, nice and even. So I definitely don't recommend the thicker gauge. Go for the 28. So if you want to see how I made this pendant here, then just keep watching and I'll walk you through it. So you are going to need some 20 gauge wire. Get at Michaels or AC Moore or online. You're going to need about 6 to 7 inches. I like to give myself a little extra, and then, if you trim off the ends, it's better than not having enough. You're going to need 3 pieces. If you have some sort of clamp, like the spring clamp here, to hold them for you, that will make your life easier. But if you don't, you can just hold the wires, with your fingers as you do the weaving. These are spring clamp you can get from a hardware store. Then you're going to need some 28 gauge wire. This is the thinner wire we're going to do the weaving with. You will need 2 beads, a round one. This is the one I'm using. Let me show you the size real quick. So it's about 2 centimeters. It is a chevron amethyst. Yours can be slightly larger or smaller. It doesn't matter. You'll just, use a little longer or shorter wires depending on your size. So you want it to be drilled top to bottom, right through. And then for the smaller decorative bead, any kind of teardrop type bead, this one needs to be drilled this way. So not top to bottom, but across. And then for tools, you will need some round nose pliers. These are really key. Regular pliers would be helpful too. They don't have to be bent like mine. If you happen to have nylon ones, they can help just because they don't scratch the wire, but it's not a big deal if you don't have these. And then you will need some wire cutters as well. So you're either going to hold or clamp your 3 wires about 1.5 inches in right here. And what you're going to do is the following wrap. You're going to take your 28 gauge wire, put it right above that bottom wire, so it's coming from back to the front. Now bring it down and up the back, and you've made 1 loop, and repeat it again. Put it right above, and now you've made 2 little loops. I know it's hard to see because they're getting pushed in there. There we go. You've made 2 little loops around the bottom wire. Now bring it right above the second wire from the bottom, and then down, bend it back up, get it right in there, right above that second wire, or below the top one, however you want to think of that. Now you have made 2 loops around the bottom 2 wires. The last step to this weave is to do this around all 3 of the wires. So now we are just wrapping around all 3, just like that. We're going to do the 2 wires again, the 2 bottom wires. So we're like following this backwards now. 2 loops again. 2 wraps, I mean. And now back to the bottom, the very bottom one. So we're making like a little, looks like a little mountain or like a little peak, if you can see that. I can take this off now. Now the wires are going to hold together on their own. You can leave yours on for a while if you want. I just want you to be able to see the pattern. If your wires are getting a little bit wonky, like not flat, the larger wires I mean, you can just kind of press down gently to flatten them up. And you can also push this way to tighten up your pattern, but it's gonna look like this, like little triangles all the way across. So now you just want to keep going. We just did the bottom wire, now it's 2 again, then it's all 3, then 2, then 1, and it just keeps going like that. So let me do that a few more times. So I've done this a few more times. Now you can really see the pattern emerging, and if you happen to not like this pattern, you can go ahead and do something different. So for example, let me do this real quick. Here's another pattern you can do. You can do 2 loops around the bottom 2 wires, and then keep bringing it, now you bringing it over the top and just above the bottom wire. So 2 loops around the top 2 wires as well. So here's what that pattern would look like if you prefer that versus the little triangles, just giving you another option. And just a quick tip, if you ever have to unwind your wire, like I just showed you guys that other type of wrap and then I took it apart, so now my wire is all bent. So if you ever have to do that because you mess up or you change your mind about something, you can fix this no problem. You just take your nylon pliers and you just do that. And you, unfortunately, you can't do this with regular ones because they're not going to slide easily like this. They're just going to scratch up all your wire, and like they would scratch all the black color off of it. But if you have nylon pliers, that's an easy way to fix it. Alright, so I got 12 of these little triangles or peaks on here. And now you want to start bending it. This is probably not going to be long enough to go around half of the stone, which is what we want, but it's going to be close. So you want to bend it into shape and then do however many more wraps that you need to do so that you know, you don't have too many, you don't have to unwrap. So just very gently holding here on these bare wires, I'm starting to bend this into a curve, and you want to kind of do one side at a time so you don't accidentally create a very sharp bend. Alright, so once that's looking decent, put my stone in there. It doesn't matter where the holes are at this point. We're not actually attaching it, but mine will be right there. So mine's actually really, really close. I think I need maybe one more. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You can straighten your wires, that'll make it easier. So I'll do, oops. So I'll do one more of this pattern, and then I'm going to go ahead and put my stone on there. Alright, I'll tighten that up in 1 second. I know that's looking very loose. Just trying to hurry here for you guys. Alright, and I'm going to end with the single loops around the bottom wire. Preferably you want to end with those just because they're nice and tight and it'll just be easier to keep going from there. Alright, let's move that out of the way. So here it is. I want this to be on the right side of my stone, and I want my stone to go this way. So I'm going to take the innermost wire, which is this one here. You can use your pliers, you can use your fingers, but you want to get a nice sharp bend. And then you can go ahead and put your stone on there. All right, so that seems about right, because this is going to be tighter, like that. All right, so that seems to be about right. That was 13 I did. All right, so here's what we're going to do now. We're going to take this wire, this one here, the next one. So the very bottom one went in the stone. This is the second one. Push it back just to get it out of your way. Take this little black wire that you have, or whatever color you happen to have that is your thinner wire, and go ahead and do some single wraps around this wire here. This used to be our top wire, I guess. So go ahead and do some little wraps right around that. Alright, so once it's about this big, this is just a little bit under a centimeter, you want to cut off your wire. You also want to give yourself a little bit of room, like this much. You're going to make a tiny loop, so give yourself just a little bit of room there, and then cut off this wire. Now we're taking our pliers and we are pinching down this little wire that we just cut. Kind of wrap it this way, that way it doesn't stick out. Now we're taking our round nose pliers back to the front here. So let me just move this tiny wire out of the way. So what you want to do is grab this, the very tip of it, with your round nose pliers. Go ahead and make a nice little loop, nice little round loop. This is going to be for decoration. And keep going with it so that you incorporate this black wire. I'm just pushing mine forward just a tiny bit so I can grab it because it was touching the stone there. Let's see here. There we go. Keep bending it so that it goes all the way around like this. So it's going to be like this. This is going to be a little decorative wrap there on the front. We can mess around with it later, get it all perfect, but for now, that's what that looks like. Now we're going to work on the back of the stone. Flip it over. We're going to work on this wire right here. So what you want to do now is bend it downwards. You want to take this little bead here, put that on. Alright, have it be facing up this way. Okay. So leave a tiny bit of room, like this. I know it's kind of hard to hold the bead in place because it moves. But basically, try and not have it move too much out of place while you bend this wire into a round shape. You can adjust the bead a little bit afterwards, but there we go. It moves a little bit there. Alright, so what you want to accomplish here is you want basically to have a little loop that this bead is hanging down from. You can see mine is not very centered, it's a little bit too far to the side. So I'm gonna put this down a little bit and alright, so kind of like that. Check how it looks from the front. There we go. It dangles and everything. You can try and get your loop a little tighter if you want, so it's not, doesn't stick out quite as much. Like that. If you have a little bump like I do right there, you can try to even that out a little bit with your pliers. Try to get, you know, nice smooth curve. But basically that's all we're going to do for now. Do not cut this wire, leave it alone for now. We're going to secure and cut this later. So once you get that how you like it, you want to take your pliers and grab this wire right here, and then take it, and mine is moving, sorry. It's hard to do this on camera, and bend it this way. There we go. Like that. So this way you can't see it from the front. You could see it a little bit before, but now we moved it out of the way. So it looks roughly like this so far. Alright, so coming back to the top, first of all, cut off this little end that we have going on here. Go ahead, just cut that off and use your pliers to pinch that down. And now take that bottom wire, bend it back and up like this, so that it is next to this other wire that's going straight through our bead. You want them to be right next to each other and parallel, like this. Now we're going to weave a little more. So this wire here is the one we just bent, and this one is the one going through the stone. Let me show you what it looks like from the back. Alright, so you can do whatever is your favorite pattern to weave. I'm going to do 3 little loops around the bottom, 3 little loops around both. So 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. Make sure you hold them nice and close. They might try to come apart, these wires, since they're only next to each other because we bent that one. So try to secure them so they're together. Now mine are holding together because of the weaving. So that's the pattern that I'm going to do. You can push it down, but I'm going to go ahead and do that for a little bit until I have a long enough area to make my bail. Alright, so that should be long enough for the bail. So you can go ahead and make your bail, push it forward and bend it back. Basically trying to make a little loop for the chain that you're gonna hang this pendant on to go through. So roughly like that. You can mess around with it and get it, you know, a little smaller, bigger, however you want. But we're not going to secure it quite yet. Now we're actually going to work on these 2 wires here. And what we're going to do is we are going to start weaving around them. And the weave that I'm going to do, so we're holding the pendant upside down. I am calling this bottom wire, this the top. So I'm going to do 4 little loops around the bottom wire. And 1 loop around both of them, and then just keep going like that for a little bit. I'll show you how long you need this to be. Alright, so once you have 8 of these little, you know, the wire that's around both, if you count just these little ones that you can see up top here, once you have 8 of those, you want to stop wrapping around both wires and just start wrapping around this bottom wire. So just keep going with this, and this one's going to remain bare from now on. Alright, so now we have roughly the same distance on this bottom wire as we do here around both. So what you want to do now is this wire here, we're going to cut it. Give yourself a little bit of room so you can grab it with your round nose pliers, because we're going to make a little loop, and then like that much. Go ahead and cut it. And you are going to grab that wire, and you're going to make a nice little loop. I try to tuck the very end of the loop under, like that, just so it looks nicer. And what you want to do now is we want to basically curve this whole piece with the 2 wires. So you can start, sorry you can't see, but I'm putting my finger there to try and start to give it that nice curve. There we go, like that. Start to curve a little bit. There we go. And then you can go ahead and grab, just if you kept doing it with your round nose pliers, that doesn't always work. You kind of have to start it with your fingers a little bit there, since you do have 2 wires. Alright, so this is the kind of loop that we're going to have for decoration. What I'm going to do now is just cut off this thin wire here and just pinch that down. So let's go ahead and do that to get that out of our way. Just wrap that a little bit. And there we go. So that's out of the way. Now this keeps sliding for me, so you might have to, you know, push this down because it keeps sliding out, like the little coils keep separating. So I'm gonna go ahead and bend that so I have this nice little round loop like that. Alright, so now you're gonna hold this down with your thumb and bend this back like that. And then here in the back, lift up your bail a tiny bit, take this wire, and bring it under the bail this way. So we are just bending it around like that. You can straighten your bail a little bit. I'm gonna have to play with this loop down here to get it all, oh there we go, to get it all symmetrical. So now we're gonna be securing these wires. So before we secure them all, because this wire down here is the wire from this loop, I am gonna go ahead and try and adjust my loop a little bit just because it's looking a tiny bit wonky. So I'm gonna try and make it look a little nicer. There we go, just squeeze it a little bit because it was, I think that's, needs to be bent a little bit to the right. So once you have that all exactly how you want it, go ahead and flip it over and we're going to secure all the wires here. Alright, so the first wire I'm going to do is this one up here. It's already nice and short. Cut it, leave just a tiny bit there. Grab my round nose pliers and just twist this little end. Oh, can't really reach that. There we go. Just tuck it. Tuck it under. So it's not scratchy and it's out of the way. There we go. Now it's out of the way and you can't see it. You can tug it a tiny bit more if you want. Mine's still a little bit, you can see the end. Alright, so now we're going to deal with these wires here. So these are the 2 from our bail. And this is the one from this little loop here. So, I mean, you can do this any number of different ways, but here's what I'm going to do. So I put this one under this one, as you saw. I'm going to go ahead and cut it. Oops, sorry about that. I'm going to go ahead and cut it. Leave myself a tiny bit of room there. And I'm going to grab that with my round nose pliers and just make a little loop to get that wire end out of the way. There we go, like that. And if you're worried about this, you know, sticking out too far, you can push this down with your nylon pliers or your regular pliers. I can do that right now to show you guys if you want. you would do it just like that, just to make this nice and flat against the stone. Now I'm going to take this wire, I'm holding this one down, my finger, bringing it up, cutting this one that's coming down, and cutting this one as well. Now I just have a bunch of little tiny ends, and I'm just going to curl them to get them out of the way. So first I'm going to curl this one that's underneath. Like that. Now I'm going to curl this one. I'm going to lift up my bail a little bit so I can get that under. Like that. So now they're all out of the way. And it's kind of a neat little design. Maybe you can wear it both ways, this way and the other way, but basically that's it. And by the way, if any of this ever feels sharp, not because you didn't tuck the ends in, but just maybe you pressed a little bit too hard with your pliers and you kind of scratched the wire a little bit and it's got a sharp little, you know, piece there. What you can do is just take some sandpaper and sand that down until it feels all nice and smooth, since this is going to be the edge that's worn, you know, against your body. So that's it. Here's my little pendant. This bead does kind of move around a little bit, dangles a little bit, which I think is cute. So hopefully you enjoyed. If you have any questions, leave them down below. And thank you so much for watching.